So the next section is something that we could spend many, many hours on: relationships, communication, cleanse. And we bring this piece into the cleanse because what inspired me, honestly, was that so many people have done the cleanse who had a partner who did not support them in doing the cleanse, whether it was a husband or a wife or a friend or a family member. It can be very challenging to do the cleanse without support. So this particular part of the cleanse was inspired because of that. The reality is anything that stresses our, not just our body, but our mind, our emotions, and our relationships is really part of our entire life, which will then impact how we detoxify, how we feel, how we live, which is ultimately what the cleanse is all about. So relationship, communication, cleanse. Two of the biggest issues, or the biggest points about cleansing your communication style in your relationships, is due to the power of presence and the power of listening. So the power of presence, the power of your breath, and the power of listening are three very powerful tools that you can use. Now, many of you may have heard of active listening. Active listening is simply the act of the discipline of listening really clearly to what someone's saying without thinking about what you're going to say next. So really your whole intention is to get what the person's saying. It can be one of the most powerful, transformational activities that you can do in any of your relationships. Each human being wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone has a natural desire to want to be heard and want to be respected. Active listening is a very powerful action of respect and an opportunity to hear another person. One of the things that happens with people, I think, is that they believe that if I really hear and understand without judging another person's point of view, it might mean I have to agree with them. And that actually is not true at all. But what happens is when you hear someone's point of view really clearly and really let them know that you hear it, and then you have a different perspective, it's a very different result than arguing and fighting and telling them that they're wrong. Everybody has the right to their point of view, even if it seems like a crazy point of view. They have the right to it, and everybody has a right to be heard. So by listening clearly, understanding another person's point of view, many, many conflicts can be resolved, because the number one problem in a conflict is that the other person doesn't feel heard. It's not so much that they don't feel that you agree with them, it's that they don't feel heard. So hearing is really important. Another very important aspect of communication is being present. Listening is part of being present. But one of the most powerful ways to get yourself present is to connect to your breath. So when you're with another human being that matters to you, focus on your breath and get present, and that will bring your energy into the presence. The other person will definitely feel the fact that you're being present with them, and they will consciously or unconsciously really appreciate that. Okay? So a couple other points that's really kind of important is that in our conflicts and in our relationships, we have to understand that everyone suffers. Everyone has a certain degree of suffering. It's not like I'm suffering and the other person isn't suffering. We all suffer. And that's ultimately why we get into rifts and tiffs and issues with people, is because we kind of forget that, wow, this person is suffering too. When we allow ourselves to be present, when we allow ourselves to actively listen, we can at least tune into the fact, okay, I really get that this person is suffering. I don't have to agree with their behavior, but I can understand that much more effectively, and it makes our relationships much more peaceful and flowing. So it's very important. So one of a little way to communicate better with people is called the communication arc. Communication, affinity, and reality. Very simple. What it means is, say you're trying to connect with somebody and you're having a hard time doing that, if you can use any of these three modalities. One way or another, start communicating with them about something. And one of the best things to do is to communicate with something that they like, that they have affinity for, or communicate with something about something that's real to them. So if somebody just likes the beautiful sunny weather, if you say, wow, isn't it a beautiful day today? Already you've agreed on something together. You've gotten rapport. You've increased the amount of affinity you have with that person. You've increased your communication with that person. So find things that you can agree with people that are real to that other person, that you can relate to also, and that will automatically increase your capacity to communicate with that person. By increasing your affinity and your communication and your reality that you have with another person, your relationship, the vibration of your relationship will be raised up, and you'll feel more of a connection and be more willing to practice active listening, to be more willing to breathe, and to be present. So acceptance and respect are huge in terms of relationship. Now, relationships need healing these days. There's a great stress on relationships. The divorce rate is anywhere from 60 to 70%. These days, there's a lot of expectations. There's many greater demands in relationships. And we all have, or people have, due to consumerism and the media, sometimes kind of twisted ideas about what a relationship is supposed to be, what a sex life is supposed to be, based on movie stars and movie actresses and TV shows. So it gets a little bit distorted, or a lot distorted. There's a greater need to support each other's self-actualization these days too. In the old days, it was all about keeping the farm going. Very more simple lives. These days, people are much more interested in personal growth and self-realization and emotional growth. So we also have to keep up with that in ourselves and our partners. I mean, sometimes one partner will take off like anything spiritually and emotionally, and the other person will drag behind. In order to make that relationship really work, the other person often has to step up a bit, which actually creates quite a bit of stress for a phase of the relationship. So never before, it's a great quote by John Wellwood, who authored Journey of the Heart, never before have intimate relationships called on us to face ourselves and each other with so much honesty and awareness as today. So that's a little something on relationships, but the main point is to really practice presence, breath, and active listening, and you will see your relationships transform.